This is basically the Coles notes of the stuff that I printed, right?
Yes. Brief report. Right. Okay, well, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and I just want to welcome you to our meeting Tuesday, August 17th. Unfortunately, our Committee of Adjustment ran a little late, so I guess our amended time will be 6:42 for the start time for our meeting Tuesday, August 17th. First of all, I'll ask if there's any disclosure of pecuniary interest. We note that. Councillor Scott, so don't be volunteering to do payroll or something tonight. So on your agenda, you'll notice number 2, presentation 2020, landfill reports by AECOM, and the ladies have joined us this evening. So good evening.
Good evening.
And I guess I'll turn it over to you. Who wants to start?
I will start. So
Okay.
I'm just going to turn off my camera for the presentation just to maintain my bandwidth and make sure I don't lose any connection. So I'm going to share my screen now. If you want to let me know if you can see it. Oh, it says the host disabled participant screen sharing.
We're working on it.
Okay, thank you.
Should be able to share it now.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
No. We can't
No.
see your name.
Can you see it now?
No.
No.
Huh.
Be able to.
Okay, I'm going to try something else. My apologies. I'm not used to using Zoom, so bear with me.
Lisa, did you want me to try and see if I can make it work and you just let me know when you want me to go to the next slide?
That would be great, Marie.
Okay, I will try that, and obviously there'll have to be a share request for my screen. Okay, so you don't want to see that. You want to see this, hopefully.
It's up now.
Okay, so now I need to get to the presentation piece. Can't. There we go. Hopefully that's one slide.
Thank you very much, Marie. Okay, so we're good to go. Good evening, everyone. I would like to start off by saying thank you to the Township of Nipissing and the council members for having AECOM present today on the Wolf Lake and Bear Creek landfills. My name is Lisa McLennan, and I am the current consultant project manager for the Township landfills. My colleague Marie Wardman is AECOM's operations lead for Canada and is also attending the presentation this evening. So the purpose of this presentation is to provide a summary of the conclusions and recommendations for the 2020 annual monitoring reports completed in March 2021 for both township landfill sites. Next slide, please. So the agenda today for our presentation will include a summary of the information contained in each of the 2020 annual monitoring reports, including an overview of the monitoring programs, the annual waste survey results, and the report conclusions and recommendations. And then we will end the session with a question and answer period. Next slide, please. So I'll start with the Wolf Lake landfill. So the monitoring program at this site currently includes 2 groundwater and surface water events that are conducted in the spring and fall of each year. There are currently 10 groundwater monitoring wells and 3 surface water locations at the site. So as part of the monitoring program, we measure water levels, collect field readings, and water quality samples for analysis. We then assess the results and compare them to the historical data to determine if there's any water quality issues. Next slide, please. So following the annual monitoring events, we conduct annual waste surveys. The surveys are completed in October, November of the active waste footprint areas only. We then compare the survey data to the previous year's data to determine how much waste was placed over the 12-month period to determine annual consumption rates and remaining capacity determinations. Next slide, please. In 2020, AECOM completed an assessment of the landfills to implement landfill cell sequencing plans to aid the township with landfilling operations. As part of those assessments, the previous final contours for the Wolf Lake landfill were revised, which changed the remaining capacity estimates that were previously provided. So as such, at the end of 2020, it was determined that the Wolf Lake landfill had did have 45,310 cubic meters capacity remaining. We then took the average annual consumption rate, which is collected over a 5-year data set, and was estimated to be 401 cubic meters. So this calculation resulted in an estimate of 113 years capacity remaining to the year 2133. Next slide, please. So based on the capacity determination that I just provided, it's very important to note that consumption rates will change over time, which can affect the overall anticipated lifespan of the landfill. So the factor that affects consumption rates will be waste diversion. So with good waste diversion programs, less waste will be generated and landfill space will increase to provide additional capacity. So in summary, the Wolf Lake landfill has an available capacity of 45,310 cubic meters. Using the average consumption rate of 401 cubic meters, this results in an estimated 113 years life remaining. It was estimated in 2020 that 131 tons of recyclables were diverted from the Wolf Lake landfill. The annual groundwater and surface water quality results were consistent from previous year's data, so therefore there was no further recommendations required for this site. Next slide, please. So I'll now review the Bear Creek landfill report summary findings. So the monitoring program at this site also includes 2 groundwater and surface water monitoring events per year completed in the spring and fall. There are currently 6 groundwater monitoring wells and 6 surface water locations at this site. And again, as part of the monitoring program, we measure water levels, collect field readings, and water quality samples for analysis. Next slide, please. So as mentioned previously, we conduct the annual waste survey following the fall annual monitoring event, and we compare the survey data to the previous year's data to determine how much waste was placed over the 12-month period. Next slide. And in 2020, AECOM also completed a landfill cell sequencing plan for the Bear Creek landfill, and the final contours for the site were also revised. As such, in 2020, it was determined that the Bear Creek landfill had 16,177 cubic meters capacity remaining. We then took the average annual consumption rate, collected over a 5-year data set again, which was estimated to be 538 cubic meters. This calculation resulted in an estimate of 30 years capacity remaining to the year 2050. So for this site, it's very important to note that the actual annual consumption rate, so not the 5-year average, for 2020 was actually 1,025 tons. So that was the highest yet over the last 12 years and double what was used as the 5-year average. So for instance, if we were to assume 1,000 cubic meters as the consumption rate instead of the 538 shown here, this would change the remaining capacity, reducing it down to 16 years. In 2020, the township started diverting some larger materials from this site to the Wolf Lake site, so that will help save space. However, it is important to also keep in mind that this will increase the consumption rate then at the Wolf Lake site. Next slide. So as you can see by the information I just provided, this strongly supports the conclusion that consumption rates will change over time, affecting the overall anticipated lifespan of the landfill. So again, waste diversion will be the key to maintaining the current remaining airspace. Next slide. In summary, the Bear Creek landfill has an available capacity of 16,177 cubic meters. Using an average consumption rate of 538 cubic meters, this results in an estimated 30 years life remaining. It was estimated that approximately 131 tons of recyclables were diverted from the Bear Creek landfill in 2020. The annual groundwater and surface water quality results were consistent as well with results from previous years. In early 2021, AECOM identified an error in the 2009 environmental compliance approval for the site. So we recommended that an environmental compliance approval amendment be completed. Next slide. So this slide shows the first page of the current environmental compliance approval for the site. The error is that the first sentence describes the total site area of 40 hectares. Unfortunately, this was never caught by the ministry or by AECOM or the township until now. So the township has confirmed that the actual site area is 10 hectares. So we did recommend that an administrative amendment be completed to make this change. That requires an application fee of $125 and fees as well for AECOM to prepare and submit the amendment application to the ministry on behalf of the township. Otherwise, we had no additional recommendations for 2020 for the Bear Creek landfill site. Next slide. So that brings us to the end of my presentation, and we can open the lines for any questions.
Councilors, does anyone have Councilor Marchant?
Yeah, it's with the 30-year lifespan of Bear Creek. With the transfer and stuff, or is there any more available property that someone's aware of around it, or is there, the cost of environmental study to increase the property size, or would it be better to make it a transfer station to go to Wolf Lake? Wonder which would be, maybe the cheaper route.
Lisa, I'm happy to chime in here.
Sure.
Ultimately, the cheaper route would be to do a transfer station at Bear Creek in 30 years or 16 years time, depending on whether or not the consumption that was found in 2020 at Bear Creek was actually an unusual year versus the 5-year average that we're seeing. So that range between 15 or 16 and 30 years is dependent on what we see next year's survey to confirm whether 2020 was an anomaly, as it were. But to expand the current site, I think there would be a challenge with that, because the only expansion that would probably be feasible for Bear Creek is a vertical expansion, and that would create other, I think, challenges for the township from an environmental compliance perspective. And to acquire additional lands, you would have to go through a screening process, not a full EA, but a screening process, and do additional studies on those surrounding lands to determine whether it's appropriate or not to do a horizontal expansion.
Yes, and if we don't own the land, then we're looking at, to buy.
Acquiring it, and that's an additional cost too, as well, obviously.
So if we could divert more from Bear Creek to Wolf Lake now, it would be better.
Yep.
If Bear Creek closes and we go our 1,000 plus our 400 that's already up at Wolf Lake, what's the life expectancy there if you start putting in 1,400 meters a year?
And I guess it all depends on whether or not 2020's Bear Creek is anomalous at the 1,000. If it's a 5-year average of the 500 and something added to the 400, so let's say 1,000, it cuts in a half approximately, or I would say you've got 50 years at Wolf Lake based on the average consumption rate.
And if we wanted to expand Bear Creek, roughly how long would it take to get approval?
The
Just-
ministry, yeah, I think the ministry would be hesitant to provide an approval when you have 30 years of capacity right now, based on average consumption rate. They would probably not entertain an application until you get to 10 years to the capacity point, because things change from their requirements and their regulations and the environmental assessment and overall procedure, because they would indicate to the township or any municipality that it doesn't make sense to do that evaluation when you've got 30 more years at this current point. But if you fast forward 20 years and we're looking for that expansion, it's probably a 2-year process, and then a year review period for the ministry to look at the application and make sure you have the appropriate, in that 2-year process, you're doing the appropriate studies to confirm that the site with the expansion wouldn't have an environmental impact on the surrounding area and environment.
I'll
From
just add to that a little bit. Sorry,
Mhm.
Marie, if you were completed there. Yeah, it's also based on specifically on site characteristics and the way that the Bear Creek landfill site is now, the footprint. We're not able to go, let's say, to the east because there are surface water features. So there are certain things that Marie mentioned as far as environmental compliance that have to be followed. So even if you were to go through the route of expansion for an application, it's not necessarily viable that they'll even accept it. So I just wanted to point that out too.
I have a question. In your capacity, and I know that you are just monitoring landfills, and we're not the only landfill that you monitor. I'm just going to assume that some landfills that you monitor are pretty close to the end of their lives.
Yes.
Are you able to share with us what those municipalities are doing?
Yes, generally, one municipality we're working with in rural Ontario is at capacity now and have been in liaison with the ministry over the last 2 years to go through their expansion application. And it's 95% across the finish line, but it's still challenging. It is a 2 to 3 year process if you're going for that expansion. Similar to yourselves, a number of our other clients or municipal clients have 2 landfills, one that is coming to closure and one that still has at least 15 to 20 years of life in it, and therefore it's about assuming all the waste is diverted to that site. They still have 20 years remaining, so they're not as concerned at this point. It will be at the kind of 10-year mark that they'll have to investigate what to do. There are a couple of smaller municipalities that have paired with the higher tier municipality to do transfer stations, whether you're talking about going from the township to the city to the regional level, and who's ultimately responsible. And it's a partnership to get through that. And so for Nipissing, there's not any real concern given the life that you have in both of your sites at this stage, from a consulting perspective or from the ministry's perspective. If you were one of those municipalities that did have limited capacity in your landfill, then it would be important to make sure that you were in the process of assessing your options, whether you are pairing with another nearby neighbor to have their service area expanded to accept your waste and look at the transport cost in relation to trying to site a new landfill. Because one of the other challenges is that although municipalities that have limited capacity left would like to expand their landfill, that's not always possible. Like Lisa pointed out, for Bear Creek with the surface water feature there, it's not always feasible to and maintain the environmental compliance. So then as a result, they are looking at assessing whether it's a transfer station or whether they need to site a new landfill, and getting partway down that assessment process to determine what the cost benefit analysis is to the municipality, and how to move that forward as to which option is the most viable.
Okay.
Yes, Councillor Martin?
Let's see, once it reaches capacity, and I'll never live to see it, but when it does reach capacity, it still could be used as a transfer station.
Yes.
And the municipality that has been working for a couple years on trying to get expansion or a new area, any idea what their costs might have been for a ballpark figure for the environmental assessments and stuff?
It's one of the municipalities we're working with. It's $300,000 to $400,000 in order to have the appropriate studies, as well as do some upgrades from an engineering perspective, and to allow the ministry to entertain a review of the application. And the engineering upgrades are not complicated. We're not talking about leachate collection systems. We're talking about making sure that there is no seepage off the side slopes of the landfill, and that there's tow drains, and clean stormwater runoff has appropriate ditching. Those types of features need to be in place in the landfill before the application and the complete assessment can be made.
And they're still not guaranteed that the ministry will
Yes.
approve it.
Yeah, and that's the biggest challenge, is that there are no guarantees. So it becomes important that if you are going through that process, that you pre-consult with the ministry as you're going through, to make sure that their tech support group and their district office is involved in assessing how the studies are going and what the findings have been along the way, so that there's not wasted funds. Should it come out to be that during the assessment stage there is a barrier and there's an issue that it's not of value to submit the application for expansion.
Hopefully by that time we'll have better recycling of everything.
Yes, hopefully by that time we have a different approach to how we handle our waste from a disposal perspective. Yes, for sure.
Good, Councillor, are there any other questions? If-
One more.
Yes,
Sorry. Have you been involved with any areas trying to get incinerators?
Yes, and it is exceptionally challenging unless you're able to gain almost a joint venture with smaller nearby townships or municipalities to all come together, because the cost is quite considerable, and it's not necessarily an obvious cost. I think there is a big stakeholder or public aversion to incinerators, and so overcoming that and having the public consultation to overcome that, and the education piece is quite costly. The studies and the design is, in the grand scheme of things, against siting a landfill, relatively simple, aside from the capital cost of actually commissioning the incinerator. But the hidden cost is making sure all the stakeholders are on board.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
thank you, ladies. If there are no other questions, I don't believe so. So we'll thank you and we look forward to your measurements and study at the end of October. And I'm sure we'll get a report after that.
Sounds
So
good.
thanks,
Definitely.
everyone.
Thanks very much.
Good
Have a
night.
great evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Former, no doubt about it. So, I guess we start with staff reports. And we have, it's funny, I didn't realize it was AECom. I've called it AECom for 30
So
years.
far.
So now I know
I
it's
think we all call it ACOM.
yeah, well, it's AECom. So for staff reports, Dan is on holidays. John Paul is here. Let's do Dan's first. They completed surface treatment. Anybody's been through, the school will be happy as heck that the kids won't be bouncing their heads off the racks inside the bus anymore on the way to the public school, because that has been fixed as well.
Or did they do their parking lot too?
Yes, yeah,
The office, not the school.
not the
Mhm.
schools, yeah.
Oh, okay.
No.
No, we're not,
Yeah, I know.
get your education taxes. They're looking at a culvert on Sunset Cove Road. And that's September 21st, and there will be a detour. Safety on the plow truck float trailer. Grader has been really busy because we have had some pretty big rain downpours. But I think as of now, every road has been graded. Guys off on holidays, and we're finding with seniority comes more holidays. And Chris is going to talk about this later. I've been in contact with the MTO to run patrols out on Pilgers Road due to the Bailey Bridge on Highway 524 being closed and commercial trucks running across our 10-ton bridge. Burials, grass, maintaining equipment. And if you were at the landfill recently, the grinder has been at the landfill and grindings have been spread and packed on top of the waste. So, question?
Yeah, Kroger Road, I just come off there a few minutes ago, and some of the hills are pretty bad.
Yeah, washboarding out.
Washboarding, it's, you would be amazed at the traffic when I've been cutting hay beside that for a week. The number of
We've been receiving
traffic,
calls.
it's, some of the hills are dangerous now.
I've been across a number of times going up to Sarah's.
It's just one thing, so.
It's too bad MTO couldn't do something. It's getting dusty too. Calcium's getting broke up.
We'll make that a priority with the grade. for sure.
The other question, I don't know if it'll come up later about some mowing.
Yeah, we'll deal with that one.
Yeah, okay.
Is the shape that Tom and Steve mentioned on the LSS, is that because we have men on holidays?
No, this is Pilgers Road. It's because
Oh,
Bridge is
oh,
closed.
because of the
Okay.
detour at Bailey Bridge.
I get you.
Excessive
We're
traffic.
cross-shading right now, so we have to grader operators.
Good, all right.
All of the traffic from Restfield Park seems to be going that way.
Mhm.
And you're getting campers pulling a boat, pulling another trailer. And
These are people who are used to country roads either.
no, I just about had a side impact today in the car bouncing.
We did put in a request to the OPP for increased patrols
Great.
due to those issues. So we put that in on Friday and I received a response yesterday that Sergeant Andrew Kramer is in charge of it. And he's looking at it. So
Yeah,
they're gonna-
good, because they're not obeying the local sign that's up at Corner Gospel.
we were there.
Yeah.
Would we be able to ask for funding for the wear and tear on our roads? Just wondering, like they are using our roads and they're coming off the highway.
Trouble is highways will say they have a posted road closed and Pilgers Road local traffic only.
Okay,
So people are violating, they're going around the barricade.
yes.
But the trouble is, on the south end of Pilgers, there's no barricade.
Then
No
they should-
signage.
Then they should be manning that barricade, as far as I'm concerned. Maybe not at night, but at least during the day.
Well, at night, the problem at night, and Chris Johnson pointed that out to us, and he lives right at the bridge. And the trucks, the scale jumpers are coming across
Yes.
there, and that's a 10-ton bridge. Now, you
Yeah.
figure a tractor trailer weighs more than 10 tons empty.
That's right, yeah.
So we're gonna have a catastrophic failure one of these days
Mhm,
if it's not policed properly.
That's right.
I spent a week beside the road there mowing and baling, and I've seen one tractor trailer
That's
That's
during
all.
the day though.
during the day,
Yeah.
one, and he was empty. But the gravel trucks, it's not the tractor trailers, it's the gravel trucks. Tandem, triaxles.
Yeah, because they're grossing out at 68,000, so that's not 10 tons.
We did put in our OPP requests for commercial vehicle patrols as well, so.
I seen an MTO truck out there one day. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So on the other side of the staff, report, you'll see
Mhm.
it was noted that sometime Friday night, one of the gate posts was attempted one of the gate posts at Wolf Lake, so it had to be replaced. Somebody's trying to take our gate down. That is one load of garbage that was left at the gates. So it had an increased issues at landfill. So we would like to go ahead with the cameras. That is a maximum $1,000 expenditure. Well, within the budget.
It's within the landfill budget or maintenance budget. But again, they're trying to destroy the gate and every day they're dumping. And I know they look through it and try to find, who's dumping it, but it's pretty tough.
I really don't think, I don't think staff should be ripping bags apart, garbage. Just buy the damn cameras, catch them, send them the bill.
As you'll see later on in our budget report, we're not even 1/3 through our budget for the year, so we definitely have room in the budget for that expense. They can be mounted on Station 2, and they can also capture the person or people who are damaging the parking lot at Station 2.
Chief?
The other thing coming forward at the next meeting will be a use bylaw for the landfill, which will allow us to ticket for illegal dumping.
Yeah.
Stuff like that we're proposing to come through. So there'll be a fine as well. So we'll be able to get a license plate and a make and model.
Surprised we don't have something in place already.
We do, we just want to strengthen it. We have to
Okay.
review it. Most of our bylaws have aged, so we want to make sure that they're the most up to date and through the shortlisting process.
We've never had real problems in the past. You just
Oh,
started.
yes,
Few
we have.
times we have, yes, and
I remember parking a tanker behind a guy who had just dumped off a bunch of fridges after he broke the gate.
It's just, I never heard much about, that there was a real problem.
so there is, and actually, our
Well-
concern is if they break the gate.
Yeah.
The liability, because we have had people go in when the gate has been open and been inadvertently locked in the landfill, which is not good either.
So that will be on
The next
the next. meeting. And it's going to be a use to. Okay, we'll move on to, in no particular order, John Paul Negrinotti. And if there's anything you see there,
Just moving down the list a little bit where the asterisk is, going down the staff report. We have had a building permit application come in for a minor variance, which was approved on October 6, 2020, under a previous bylaw, 2012-12. We passed our current bylaw, 2020-20 on December 1st. Section 3.24 bylaw 2020-20 would allow for construction of a dwelling addition if footings or foundations were constructed prior to the passing of our current bylaw. However, the people didn't get to putting the foundation in yet last fall. So it never took place. But they want to get a building permit this year. They just came to the office now trying to get a building permit. And they've gone through a lot of processes in the past trying to get that last fire variance approved. I don't know if everybody remembers it on Justified. There's a property there. So I talked to our planners and we do have two choices. The applicant could reapply and do the whole thing over again. Or council could do a housekeeping amendment to bylaw 2020-20 to include a transition provision for minor variance approved within the last 3 years. Then the person could apply and go forward with the development. Staff has recommended option 2, but this is-
You've already approved it.
The option 2 is good.
Yes, I think that's just the right way to go. So
On the next agenda as well.
we'll put that on the next agenda as well, and we'll go over to the fire CEMC municipal bylaw. So that's Will's there. And he's here. If you have any questions, you'll notice the HVAC is working in here tonight.
Yes, that's nice.
So it's been installed in the office, and Public Works furnace is next.
Tomorrow morning.
I think. And we advertised, of course, Command is yard sale this Saturday and Museum Heritage Day this Sunday. And, yes,
Just not a question, but a thank you to Chief for coming out to the command annual general meeting. That meant a lot to the other people to have a
I'm gonna try to
representative.
attend every one.
And we thank you for all your help with this ongoing project. So people were quite impressed. Thank you.
and I think unless there's any questions for Will, we'll go on to Crisscross Street Hydrants. And she's already talked about the Dover's Road. Do you want to go to the ISIP?
Sure. Ventilation upgrades and replacement, we had applied for this in 2020, and then had been given verbal approval. And we went ahead with the RFP, so now the agreement is here, so I'll be bringing forward the resolution to move forward with that, but we did have to sign that ahead of time. So it just didn't follow the regular steps, but we did get the funding. They announced yesterday the third intake for the municipal modernization program, which would be ideal for a new website, for example, or things like that. However, the caveat that I found is the first requirement for the application process is that all unconditional funding received in March 2019 must be spent or allocated. And at this time, we have $236,474.51 remaining in reserve. And that is with the 30,000 that we have dedicated to our broadband projects if they come taken out of it. So we
Is there
we
a-
don't
Is
qualify.
there a deadline?
Deadline to spend the money?
Well, we didn't budget for it in 2021, so we
Okay.
would have to do an amendment to our budget. And it would have to be,
And I said, why can't we put the truck on that? Our new snowplow truck, but doesn't qualify as a
What
modernization.
qualifies?
digital modernization, service
Digital
integration, streamlined development approvals, and shared services and alternative delivery models. So really, the website and the electronic, everything would be great, but we would have to have everything and our expression of interest in by October 19th, which means we would have to amend the budget and spend $236,000 in it.
What about more money into the broadband?
Yeah, we can certainly do that.
That's certainly a good modernization, more efficiency for the township.
Mhm. But you're saying they want our plan by October.
October 19th.
Wow, doesn't
I
give us a
don't-
lot of
So,
time.
but I mean, you can look at this a couple of different ways, where if we're working towards a new website next year would be a
Yes.
great idea, but we'll get some figures, of course, for the
Right.
budget, and then we would have that modernization money to use towards it.
Okay,
Could we put out a RP up or something like that without amending the budget for next year, or like for a new upgrading of websites or stuff like that?
That's a tremendous job, and right now our office staff is strained right to the limit, so we would have to
Yeah,
give it at least 6 to 8 weeks before we can get to that because of the planning
we would have to amend the budget.
and not if we approved it for next year.
so we
Yeah.
can't approve it for next year.
We
But
can
then,
approve
but then the
anything for
money
next
wouldn't
year.
come out of that 236 until next year.
No, you come out of the 236.
It'd be pretty- Be pretty hard to spend that much money to justify to get more.
If we would get another, because this intake isn't guaranteed where the other was.
In my mind, we were quite fortunate to get the 400 and some thousand.
Yeah.
I think we
And
did
we
pretty
spent
well.
it quite well, so then we maintained it.
I would think the broadband to me would be
Yeah,
something we
that's
should look
very
at putting more
important,
money in.
Mhm.
I believe that was going to be an annual addition.
Yeah.
Through the budget process, so that we had.
And then, in our most recent correspondence, there was some broadband information, again, just to promise the day that the election was named, mentioned that
Yeah.
there would be more broadband, whatever,
So
so,
2025.
Right, yeah.
yeah. But again, that there would be broadband all over Canada by 2025, but not saying the levels, you know. And they can turn around and say, you have broadband. So that's what we're gonna continue to fight, and we'll continue to put money in that, so that when we get the opportunity, we're definitely gonna jump on that, because
I
like
think
you said, it's a good investment.
modernization money should go into something like that.
James?
Is there anything that we could ask our local providers? So I'm gonna say not Spectrum, but maybe there's other people. Is there something that we can do extra?
It doesn't say
Today?
so, because we talked to Net Spectrum, Bell, Rogers, like, and they're saying you've got to wait for those federal grants.
Yeah, because I'm watching them put in fiber optics covering an area where I work,
Yeah.
and they're doing it, running it off their tower and feeding it to the house, all the houses. So they're putting in the infrastructure now. I didn't know if there was something like that.
They probably got funding
Available.
for it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know where they got the funding or,
Well, Bell
They would
asked
know.
us for our
Chisholm got
support,
a call.
yeah,
And we did give a letter of support to Bell.
yes,
Yeah.
we did,
Everybody that
yeah.
asks for those, because like they need those for funding applications. as
Yeah.
well. So,
It's a Bell mobility too. We need to,
Yes,
Yes.
yeah, it's frustrating when you go down the command and there's no signal at all.
I'm right on 654 and I get one more in the back, so if I stay on 1 foot.
They just don't seem to care.
Mhm.
And
I can't think of any
the
others.
last one,
Well, the September 7th agenda is going to be fairly busy as well. We may be able to move some of those to the next agenda, but right now we're working on the parking bylaw. That's our next big review. We're having issues with the Mukwabi Lake boat launch. It's in really bad shape. We keep getting our complaints and we've been down to look at it. That's going to be a considerable expense if we want to repair it. So we're looking at our other options and we found some, so we will bring forward a report on that. Also, there is we own land for municipal access to Ruth Lake. It's a small piece leading to the lake, and it has been brushed in the past for walking traffic, bringing a canoe or a kayak, not for a boat launch. And we have been approached to brush it again, and we do have the manpower, have the equipment, and Dan has advised it would not be a large project. But allow people to get onto Ruth Lake, so we will be bringing forward a resolution to move forward with that, because in the past there had been some opposition from council a previous council, so we want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
I would think that if we're offering access to a lake, that
We're getting
we have
taxes.
access,
We're
yeah,
getting taxes from there.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
we're not
we'll just
providing
follow
our service.
that stuff, and we're gonna finish, we were up doing a site visit yesterday to make sure that we can do that, and everything seems to be found. So. And we'll also be reviewing the landfill user fees. There's a lot of gray area, and there's been a lot of question about how different fees are arrived at. There's a lot of confusion, even for our staff. So we've approached the staff to give us an itemized list of the things that they're having difficulty with. And we're gonna expand that list, so hopefully coming forward. It takes time to do the user fee bylaw, because we have to do a public process, but we are working on that, so that's on the way.
That's a good idea to work with the staff because they're the ones that know.
Exactly, and they know what is coming in and what is causing an issue, and where it has to go. So I went up to the landfill yesterday and I spoke to both of them, and we're gonna work on that. So,
Good.
okay.
Okay, so if there are no other staff reports, we'll go to committee reports, and we'll start with Councillor Moore.
Okay, I'll just go through this quickly. It's gonna be a long night. We did have Nipissing Township Museum Board meeting on August the 4th. Let's see what we talked about. We did, our new member, Chris Johnson, I think I talked about this at the last meeting. His business is in promoting and marketing. So he's come up with, it's called it's a kit anyway, and it will help promote us. It costs about $360 a year. And what it does is if we have approximately 200 items, pictures, events that are happening, we hire this company and they will continuously put it on all of our websites, or the social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. And I have done research on other museums and they are using something very similar to this. It's to put you out there, it's to market us, show people where we are, give them information. So we are looking at budgeting that for next year. The manager is working on, she's been doing interviews, oral interviews with people in the area. So she needs to transcribe that. We've been organizing the storage room, cataloging. They are behind on a lot of things because they had to catch up with so much with the COVID closures. But we are very interested in her updating the operations manual, which she will be working on in her downtime. We have hired the painter. I think at the last meeting, we discussed that his budget, he gave us a quote and it was $2,200 or $2,300. But not included in the quote were the windows on the museum, the windows on the back of the office building, and the back door step. So that quote has gone from 23 to 29, still well be in our budget. So he's already started the staining there. So this week we have Sunday is Heritage Day from 11 to 2 or 3, I believe. Jillian has managed to bring in the James Houston band at no charge to us. He's donating his time, which is great. There will be a barbecue. Blacksmith will be there. Somebody will be doing some dyeing with old-fashioned ways. And we are going to ask, it's further down in the agenda, that we would like the manager's hours increased. Right now, she works approximately 10 to 12 weeks out of the year. There's a lot to do. She's given us some great ideas of what she'd like to do in there. We're behind on a lot of things. So for next year, we would like to bring her in for the month of May at 3 hours a week. And for half of September and into October for 3 hours a week. 3 days a week, sorry, 3 days a week, yes. So it won't increase the budget substantially. It really won't. And So that's about all I have. Our next meeting will be September the 1st, and I'm sure I've missed things, and Steve can go ahead if I have.
No, you didn't. You covered it pretty good.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Okay, any questions for either of them? Otherwise, Councillor Marchant?
No vet committee or no source water protection. Haven't heard a word from them.
Must mean everything's working well then.
I hope so. No news, good news.
Yes. Yes.
And well, Liz covered all of the museum stuff. She was pretty thorough with that. The library, their next meeting isn't until September, so I won't have anything to report until after that. So
Well, September's pretty soon,
I know.
unfortunately. Okay, Councillor Scott.
I have something to report.
Okay.
It's been a while. Okay, I'm the chair of the rec committee, and our first event that the rec is gonna put on will be movie in the park on September the 25th at 8:30. We're gonna pick the movie at a later time. The gym, we're gonna ask for lights in the hall to be automatic. And then we were gonna put them we thought we'd put them in the basement, but we decided not to. Just in the hall, if it's possible, and then Will's gonna check in on the price and what it was gonna cost. And that's, there's lots of rules there. But that's, and the gym's gonna be open the 14th? It's open now.
Yeah.
And the hours will be closed 8 till 10 for cleaning. And the gym is open 24 hours. We're gonna try that to see.
Wow, okay.
I think we were also going to try to look at the 8 to 10. We thought that might be a popular time where people go to the gym, so we were hoping we could kind of look at the key fobs. Are we able to do that, Will?
Unfortunately, we are not.
Okay, so I guess we'll just wait and see if there's feedback about that.
So, but what we are doing is, John Paul's giving me a hand, we're gonna monitor the sign-ins every
Okay.
week. Monday morning, we're gonna go in and we're gonna see when everybody
Okay, that's a good
is
idea.
fobbing in.
Yeah.
And we'll monitor that maybe for a month and see.
Our system is fairly basic as
Yeah.
far as.
Yeah, okay. I wasn't sure if it would
We know
record.
what the price. when
Okay.
we're Signed in.
And I think on the agenda is the playground, which will be covered after. And I think that's it.
Good, thank you. And brief East Home report, wage enhancement for $3 an hour lasts till August 23rd. So it's almost over. Under the ISIP funding, the architects and engineers are working on roof plans and HVAC designs to get them integrated to start physical work. Getting quotes on hot water tanks, 2 hot water tanks, 10 grand each for a hot water tank. And 2 dishwashers, they're a little less. Applied for a seniors community grant on behalf of the resident council. That's for beautification, entertainment. And there has been no COVID containment funding since March. So it ended at the end of the first quarter. And we're still paying for rapid tests every day at the front. So we're hoping that the government comes through with more funding. Otherwise, it's going to fall on us. Systems and programs, they've trained 55 of 75 in point of care. That's basically, they have iPads and they go over every person. And it's everything. They're trying to get this on because everything from pill regime to bathing to what they eat. And that right now is written down. So I would write down what you had for lunch, everything. And it is so time consuming to do that for 128 people. And so they're really working on trying to, get into the 21st century. So they've got a new ledger program because the one they had was the same one that was there 52 years ago when I worked there. They also had no federal funding for summer students. So I'm not happy about that. Operations, they're being pressured to take more hospital overflow because they still think there's going to be a fourth wave. They're trying to get more people out of the hospital. And it's difficult because when you do that, you lose single rooms and then you can't isolate if there's an outbreak there. You're in double rooms. Now you've got 2 people and you've got an issue because East Home is open to general visitors, testing for people who aren't fully vaccinated. They have the quick test. And today there's waffling, but I didn't hear it after 1 o'clock today that vaccines for healthcare, education, and childcare may be mandatory. But that, I didn't hear it after 1 o'clock. I'm assuming it came out, but who knows for sure. And that would be it for East Home, and I have another meeting tomorrow. So we'll go back to that. So any questions? In that case, we can go to number 5, which would be to adopt the minutes of the meeting held July 13th. So I need a mover and seconder. Okay, Councillor Moore, Councillor Kirky. It's R 2021-174, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Kirky, that the minutes of the meeting held July 13th, 2021 be adopted as published. All in favor? Carried. The next one, to adopt the closed session minutes of the meeting. We haven't received the August 3rd closed session minutes yet, so we'll be deferring that. And I will give Elaine a call again and we'll move on. The next one, which takes us to to number 7, the board recycling service, RFP. And
we had circulated all of the additional information. Are there any other questions?
Are we going with the 40-yard bin?
No, there's no infrastructure in place in order for us to build the space for the 40-yard bins for 2 of them, 1 for plastics, 1 for glass. It would cost us considerable amounts. We are going to start with the smaller bins, and then if they fill, then we'll go ahead with the infrastructure and find a way.
Well, if you take the 401 cubic yards at Wolf Lake that the ladies mentioned, and if we go with 6-yard bins, it's going to be about, for the 401
that's-
yards, it'll be about the,
Commingled, right? That's
yeah.
commingled. That's
Yeah.
when we were looking at the actual breakdown numbers, there was reason to believe that that wouldn't be. We have a great deal of tin
Mhm.
and steel, and that'll be going into another bin.
My only concern is that the 40-yard bin is 6.6 bins, and that,
Yep.
yeah, the price will be astronomical if it's.
We're gonna monitor that. We're not gonna allow that to be the problem.
so, and, Canor said that, it shouldn't be an issue, but we'll do this, and if it is,
And we'll build the
we'll
infrastructure.
build the infrastructure and put in the fort.
What size of bin do we have now?
We have 2 bins commingled. So it's a 40-yard bin, just the one for the commingled.
Mm,
And that's working for us now.
Yeah, but that can't stay that way because it's not gonna be commingled. So they're putting in a 40-yard bin for the cardboard, and they have to put in 2 more 40-yard bins because it's all going to be broken down. Glass, plastics, and cardboard. So we don't have the infrastructure and the walkways up to get into, so that's the problem.
Yes,
Okay. I'm gonna try to think outside the box a little bit. Our footprint on our dump is what it is. The back section that we can't use for garbage. If we turn that into our recycling area, is that capable or possible? Without doing, like, because we got a lot of strippings and we got a lot of like debris from the road that they dig up and all that. If we put it in behind and level that section off and maybe turn that into our recycling area.
I think it's more the walkways up to the bins to get to the top of the bins. That's the issue. That's
Yeah.
why they are where they are right now.
Yes. Yes, but really, if we had to put more bins beside there, we couldn't. There's not enough room. So what I'm saying is, starting in the future, we should start building behind, making a roadway. I'm not sure if I'm explaining it right. You come into Bear Creek and you go up, so in behind Dean's Shack, where our boundary for garbage is, but if we started filling that in and leveling that off and using that as our recycling area.
I'm not sure if we're allowed to put fill there. We would have to check with ACOM to see what that boundary is.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the building features would be for us to be able to put our bins in there. So I'd
Yeah.
have to speak to Dan to see what he would.
Yeah, like, it's just a thought.
see what
It's
they're
not.
looking at.
Yeah,
Recycling here, put the garbage where the recycling is.
Like separate it, make it a separate part.
Yeah,
And I'm not sure how the footprint, because I don't know Wolf Lake very well. And I don't know what the footprint is there. I don't know if there's an area there. Like, I know Bear Creek is a bigger area than the other one, maybe.
we have more fill cells at Wolf Lake that are open.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we don't want to use those for recycling. area.
but we'll have to refer back to Dan on that. But I do know that that was the reasoning behind starting with the 6-yard bins.
Yeah, I understand and we gotta do that, but maybe in the future we could start going around the backside, level all that off, bring it up. So it's drivable. And put your bins in there. And have it that way.
I think sometime we should be looking at setting up the bigger bins.
Well, that's what I mean. If you build this now,
Yes.
then you can do, you drive in, you drive up, 4 bins, 5 bins, 6 bins on 3 on each side or whatever, and you do your thing and then you drive down and go out.
certainly something to look at if we have to put the bigger bins in.
In the
Absolutely,
future,
yeah.
for sure.
In the
Yeah.
future.
You know, the one thing I noticed, I was there last week and they were holding us up, stopping us because there were so many cars in there at once.
Yeah.
And if you were unloading at that one bin, because by the time I got in, there were 8 vehicles there
Yes,
lined up. And, you know, and of course, all you need is one person that wants to chat.
yeah.
And, but I just went and they were all going to dump garbage, so I did the bins, did the fire, then dumped the garbage. You know, it's an interesting idea whether it'll work or if it causes a traffic jam, that kind of thing. But we'll, you know,
But-
we can look at it.
Yeah, it's, if you fill in that back section with our dishing material, with our road excavations, and you do it right, that area will become useful. You'll take all the bins and everything out of up top, move everything down to the bottom when it's prepped and ready.
Is there
And
a
you-
slope there that the bins could be backed into with the?
You'd have to
what do they call
raise it.
The cement things.
Yeah, you'd have to raise it a long way, but yeah, I've seen it done
I
and
can't remember, I've only been to Bear Creek once, so I just wonder if there's any way of digging into the bank that, and putting cement.
well, I would, if I was gonna do it,
retaining walls.
I'd just do cement blocks and then fill in between and the
Yeah.
bins go up against the blocks.
Yeah,
And then
that's what I was
end
kind
of
of
story.
wondering if there was natural slope that could be done.
I don't think so, and you'd have to, because it is a slope, and I don't know if you can play with the slope
To get
Because
the truck around to
that's,
pick it up.
that's part of ACON. You're supposed to have so much egress slope on that, and I don't think you can play with that. But if you're on the other side of that, then it's a different story. I'm thinking, I'm hoping.
It's definitely something that we should look at for the next budget because it will be considerable for the infrastructure to have the bins there, but
Yeah.
definitely.
And I think it'll free up a whole whack of room. And then the recycling going the way I think it's gonna go, I hope it's gonna go. If you have a bigger area, I wrote down here, for our modernization, maybe we should be looking into bins for drywall or bins for mattresses. Right now, we don't have the area to do that. But if you could use that modernization money to team up with that to go to diversion sites.
Actually, we've been in talks with the city of North Bay for a year and a half.
Yeah.
On mattresses, so we're still working on.
Yeah, but if we had the area,
Yeah,
we have the ability to do more. Like another one would be asphalt shingles.
right.
Yeah, they take up a lot.
Take a lot of room. If you had a bin and it was clean, there are areas that'll take it.
Like you said,
They'll buy it.
drywall too, at places. will
Yeah,
take it.
but right now, we don't have the ability. But if we look into the future, maybe we should be starting now, making that area to accommodate. Maybe when it ends at Bear Creek, maybe that could be all our recycling, no more
Right.
recycling at Wolf Lake, all the recycling will have to come
Yeah.
to here, if we have a big enough and clean enough area to do it in.
You know. I don't know though if people from Granite Hill or Lickenfelder want to drive all the way up to Bear Creek.
That's-
Well,
Yeah.
In a few years,
Good point.
God forbid, I'm gonna have to drive to Wolf Lake, so
Yeah.
it's tit for
It's a
tat.
long ways from Granite Hill up to Bear Creek. Like, I can agree with that, and I think that's something the modernization might be something to look at.
Yeah, if we can use the money for that, absolutely, yeah.
Steve, did you have something to add?
No, I'm good.
Good. Okay, well, we'll move on to this recycling. And again, it's going to be so important, as you said, when we move on here, to know exactly how much glass is going out, how much plastic, how much cardboard. And I think that's the main reason we're looking at CanR. And so we have the motion on the floor. I need a mover and a seconder.
I'll move.
Okay. So, Mr. Kirky, Mr. Scott, Council. So our 2021-175 moved by Councillor Kirky, seconded by Councillor Scott, that we award RFP 2021 recycling for recycling services to CanR Construction Incorporated. All in favor?
Yes.
Really? And the next one, number 8. We put the RFP out. There's only one company that responded. So we're gonna look around again. So we're gonna defer that. Okay, I know it, we need more information. And I mean, if we look around and we only get one again, there's not much we can do about it. But right now, Dan does not want to go forward until he gets more information. And
It's it is a little pricey.
yeah,
It's 10,000 more than the one we went out for last year. And with COVID pricing, actually, we thought that was rather reasonable. However, we have a checklist that goes with the RFP for the specs. And quite a few no's were checked. And Dan wasn't satisfied with that, so he wants to do some more research to make sure we get the exact truck that we want at the best price.
Okay. Sounds fair.
next motion is that for the Township of Nipissing Recreation Committee. And we have 2 more people that are interested in joining, Shelley Foote and Steve Duchesne. Hmm? Not on this one. Okay.
Steph Duchesne.
Okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Down.
Steph.
That was what was on the email.
Right.
Steph
So it's
Boulay.
number R 2021-176. I need a mover and a seconder to let them join the committee. Thank you, Councilor Marchant. And Councilor Dewar. So it's R 2021-176, moved by Councilor Marchant, seconded by Councilor Moore, that we appoint Shelley Ford and Steph Isham as members of the Township of Nipissing Recreation Committee. All in favor? Carried. My apologies for mispronounced. Next one, this was a grant application for victim support. And we just need a mover and a seconder for it. And this is with, well, we're invited by the OPP.
I believe that.
Okay, so Councilor Moore, for sure, Child Youth Advocacy, and Councilor Kirk. It's number R 2021-177, moved by Councilor Moore, second by Councilor Kirky, that we send a letter of support for the Child Youth Advocacy Center Victim Support Grant. All in favor? Carried. So Liz talked about it, Steve deferred, saying Liz did a good job. So this is the Nipissing Township Museum to extend the seasonal operating schedule for weekend openings. So I need a mover and a seconder.
If I could speak to a little bit on that
Okay,
too,
sure.
Mayor Piper. I think right now, and it's been like that in the past, where with the short season that the manager or curator, whatever we call them, there's always been somebody either on the board or with council that basically, because the changeover is almost yearly or every second year, the season's too short, people don't stay on. So a lot of the extra work falls on the staff at the office. They don't have time for it, and I get that. And somebody either on council or on the board is walking them through it on a daily basis in the summer. It's not fair to that person either. So I think it's really important we discussed, she's willing to do the 3 days a week part-time in May and September and October. And then I think if that works out and we see how she makes out, that should be extended to a 6-month contract term yearly from now on in. That's my opinion. I don't know if Councillor Kirky has anything to add to that.
Well, for continuity and retention, if you will,
Yes.
probably be a good idea.
Yeah.
And the added cost would probably be offset by the amount of time they're not taking up from the staff
That's correct.
and
Absolutely.
retraining on an annual basis or
That's
a
right.
biannual basis.
And I think the other thing both mentioned was we may be able to use the school programs that we have never
Mhm.
accessed, and the
Mhm.
school was interested in
Yeah.
the past,
Yes.
so
Yeah.
get them in the museum as well.
Did we hire as early this year as normal?
No, we hired
So there
late.
should be money left.
Yes, we can keep her probably till the end of September, I think. Yeah, so she can get,
Without going to the
that's
budget.
right, without going with the budget this
Yeah.
year, so,
Yeah. That was September
yes,
and October.
yeah,
October 8th, actually,
yes, was it that? Okay.
October 8th.
Yeah, that's,
So we're moving her into second, please. Okay. So, Marching. So Moore. It's number R 2021-178, moved by Councillor Marchant, seconded by Councillor Moore, that the council authorizes the Nipissing Township Museum to extend the seasonal operating schedule to open May to October annually, allowing for weekend openings outside of June, July, and August. All in favor? Yeah. Okay. And this is number 12. And And I don't know if James wants to speak about it, but this is phase 2 documents for Canada Community Recovery Fund.
This one?
And it's an application for the Heritage Park Playground project. So
Sure.
you got it, you certainly,
So what happened was, we came upon a grant opportunity and we had a two-day turnaround roughly to put something together for, they called it a recovery from COVID, so encouraging people to get out. So there was an idea put forward for playground equipment at Heritage Park. So we thought we'd just throw that out there and see if we could get the funding. We do have some money in reserve for our 25%. And we made it through successfully for the phase 2 of the funding. So and we're bringing it to council. It was such a short turnaround, we just thought we would see if we could do it.
Yes, we heard about it very briefly at the last
Yes.
rec committee. How much is the funding for?
It is 75% federal, 25% municipal.
Okay, so if we decided to spend 200,000, we're doing 25%.
We put forward for, I believe it was, yeah, I see the sheets. See if I have it. For the funding, we put forward 83,000 would give 2 pieces of playground equipment. I believe there was one set for ages up to 5 and one set from 5 to 12.
Yeah.
And that would mean that it wouldn't use up all of our reserve. Because I believe we had 25,000 roughly in reserve for equipment for rec. And that would only use 22. So we wouldn't be using all of it if there was something else we needed. Plus, we now have another full-time staff on our public works who can be trained for the maintenance and inspection aspect of it. So we're working within what we have.
Okay.
So that's what we were looking at just to start.
Did we decide on the equipment that we would order yet?
We had put forward a proposal, but it isn't set in stone.
Okay.
We just wanted to see if we could be successful in the funding. So we're at stage 2. They're asking for a whole lot more information that still isn't
Okay.
approved. And this would be on the 2022 budget.
And is this an annual amount that we can apply for, or this is a
No.
one-time?
It was
This is
a
one-time.
one-time
Okay,
funding to get people active again after COVID.
perfect.
So that was why
Okay.
we jumped on it just to see,
Yeah.
and we were successful.
Good.
So far.
so a mover and seconder. Okay. Councillor Kirky and Councillor Scott. And we authorize, so it's R 2021-179, moved by Councillor Kirky, seconded by Councillor Scott, that we authorize the mayor to sign phase 2 documents of the Canada Community Recovery Fund application for the Heritage Park Playground project. All in favor?
We have been monitoring the funding lists that come out. I'm getting more and more of them, so we keep looking for different opportunities, and as they come up, sometimes the turnaround is so quick that we have to put it in before we can come to council with a plan. But we'll put it in, we'll see what we get, and then we can always say no if it is successful, but at least we're not missing any opportunities.
I think we may be eligible to, once we put the museum manager on the 6 months. She seemed to think that we could be eligible for 100% funding for an internship.
Oh.
So that's something we could look
I'll
at
talk
down
to
the
her about
road.
that for the
Yes,
programming
yeah.
then. Yes.
Okay. Two.
Oh, no, just one.
Okay. Number 13, bylaw regulating animals and pounding animals at large other than dogs. Has everybody had a chance to see this? Any comments or questions?
Not for me.
Okay, in which case we need to move over to seconder. Councillor Moore and Councillor Kirky. You were. Okay. Here. It's number R 2021-180, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Kirky. We passed bylaw number 2021-36, being the bylaw to prohibit or regulate animals other than dogs and cats within the township of Nipissing. We had a first, second, and third time to pass this 17th day of August, 2021. All in favor? Thank you. Okay. Let's see if I can- Okay, so this is just an updated bylaw, correct? To authorize the creation and operation of the Recreation Committee for the conduct of recreation program and management of the Township of Nipissing Community Center and for the corporation of the Township of Nipissing. So again, and again, we're just trying to, the staff are trying to redo out-of-date bylaws and resolutions. So mover and seconder, Councilor Marching. And Councilor Scott. It's our 2021-181. Moved by Councilor Marching, seconded by Councilor Scott, and we passed bylaw number 2021-38, being the bylaw to authorize the creation and operation of a recreation committee for the conduct of recreation programming and management of the Township of Nipissing Community Center for the corporation of the Township of Nipissing. We're the first, second, and third time to pass this 17th day of August, 2021. All in favor? Carried. Cemetery committee. So this is, so we have a cemetery committee for the 3 cemeteries in the corporation of Township of Nipissing. And I need a seconder for that as well. I'm going with Councilor Scott and Councilor Wood. I thank you. And by the way, when we get through this COVID, we'll be passing these out again like we used to. But now to go and move around, we'd be having to mask and do that. So just in case you thought if you want. Our 2021-182, moved by Councilor Scott, seconded by Councilor Wardo, that we passed bylaw number 2021-39, being a bylaw to authorize the creation and operation of a cemetery committee for the administration of the Nipissing Union Cemetery, the Commanda Cemetery, and the St. John's Elsas Cemetery for the corporation of the Township of Nipissing. We're at a first, second, and third time to pass the 17th day of August, 2021. All in favor? Carried.
We'll be putting out a call for the members of the cemetery committee as well. So we will need to call a meeting, we have some changes to make to the bylaw for legislated care maintenance funding, things like that, so.
Anybody from council on it now?
Yeah, I know.
I wasn't sure who, because we never hear a report or anything.
No,
We haven't met for 2 years.
we haven't met through COVID at all, so.
But we do have to. Because there needs to be some changes.
Which clears up the staff then for the recreation committee.
Mhm.
Okay, so 16 is budget update.
Have any questions about the budget? I don't think we want to go line by line.
No.
There weren't any large concerns that I saw. On page 1, you'll notice that the modernization, or not the modernization, the COVID resilience fund, which we have down 55,000, we haven't got that yet. But we are signing the agreement tonight, so that guarantees we will be getting the funding. You'll notice the payments in lieu of provincial was a lot higher than what we had budgeted, but if you look at the 2020 numbers, we received 2020 and 2021, and I had to be audited, so I couldn't move things around. Everything else seems to be well on track for where we are for the year, and I do go through it quite often. The other item that you may notice is in Public Works.
Page 9.
I believe page 9, yes. Page 9. And you'll see the HTM labor and rentals, which would be the third and fourth line down. very much over budget. But the reason for that is that includes work done for AMO and OSIP projects. We don't include that in that number until after we've done our budgeting, because we can't claim that through their funding. So that's through our.
So money's there.
Yeah, I have no concerns as far as where we stand right now. We're in really good shape for being past way through the year. And our reserves are strong. At this time,
That music coming from the business center? Well,
Yeah,
we
downstairs.
can ask them to turn it down.
Will asked me earlier and I said, we just speak up.
Right now, as it stands, just for municipal reserves, we have 2.9.
That's what I call being in good shape.
We work hard at that. And previously, we had put 2 million into the GIC
Right.
and we got a really good return. They did just put that back in the general fund. I did call them and we'll be making more interest in the general fund now. So we'll leave it there for now.
Any other questions on the budget? We'll go to the fall's newsletter draft review.
This is not for approval. This is just for.
We're just
Yeah.
looking at it.
Look good. Kristen, nice and colorful again.
Yes,
Good job.
Yes,
I would like to see something. I've sent an email that I've been getting. I know I can't say names or anything because we're not in full session. I've been getting quite a few complaints the last while. And I think a lot of it could be just giving the people an explanation, saying why the brushing stopped on Alsace, why the calcium was 2 months or a month and a half late. Why
The
some of
calcium
that.
was late because of supply.
Well, I know,
Yes.
and I know why the brushing wasn't done, but the people don't know. You know, they drive up the road and there's alders hanging over Alsace now on a couple of corners.
I see what you're
And
saying.
the calcium
Yeah.
was really late. And Summer saw them spraying the calcium and pouring rain, like I had to pull over.
When it's scheduled, it's.
I know, see, I
Unfortunately,
know
it's
this,
taken a
but
ride.
But you're
I
saying
think
to
the
prevent,
people have the
yeah.
right to, in the south end, to know why some of this work wasn't being done. And it's just a few lines in the newsletter to say, look, we had greater trouble this year. We lost our place in line for calcium.
Yeah.
The excavator that does the brushing was worn out. Just a few lines to say.
prevent the multiple phone calls over and over
Getting
again.
any at the office. And so
No,
that
it's
is
just
the
that people
problem.
have come to me and talked to me and said, and they're getting down now to starting complaining about staff.
but have they called the office?
No, I told them and I explained to them, but the same reason, it's just something that,
And the problem is, and I looked at this and then I called that lady that is, supposedly advising us. And her first comment was, now you're advertising what you're doing wrong. She said,
I think there's
she
two
said,
ways.
you
to
have
go.
a complaint procedure, use your complaint procedure. Have them call the office and the office should explain. And because when they do that, there's a written record. Because when they call me or they call you and we complain, there's no record. And hers is call the office. I have a complaint that brushing wasn't done. You take their name and say, I understand this is what's happened. And they explain it. We can explain it, but they might not accept our explanation. And I mean, I'm getting lots of calls too, and just a couple from that area. But I'm lucky that I get the whole township. And again, I try to give them an answer, but as soon as I do, if Dan doesn't get that, it doesn't help. So we have to advise them, this is a complaint procedure. We even got an email with that you can't trace complaining about something, right? Because they want it to be anonymous. but we can't take anonymous complaints because,
Right.
you know,
Maybe that's what the newsletter needs, and one little line saying, this is, here's how, I think we've done it in the
We've
past.
done it in the past.
Maybe we need to do it maybe once a year in one newsletter a year. This is the complaint policy.
We gotta-
Counselors don't take complaints. This is not how it works. You know,
counselors gladly listen.
Yes,
Yeah,
But we ask you to
that's right.
send this in so it can be recorded.
Yeah.
And we can, because we know,
Yeah.
we know what happened. We know why this culvert is bad up at
That's
this
right, yeah.
end. We know where the washout was over here. We know Pilgers Road, all of those. But they don't know the background, so
Yeah.
hopefully, I agree, we should put in, this is,
Yeah.
if you have a complaint, please
This is
register.
the
We gotta
procedure.
stop
Yeah.
using that word complaint. It's like calling the dump, the landfill.
Correct.
It's a request for service.
well, I don't know if I agree with that. It's just the people are saying,
Yeah.
like, no, why wasn't it done?
It's a request for service. They're asking, they're asking for service. They're not complaining.
But our-
Nobody's complaining.
Our policy is a complaint
They are.
policy, am I correct? Yeah, so
Let's
it's not a
change-
request
let's
for
change
service
that.
policy.
We gotta
It's a
change that.
complaint when they come to you and
Yes.
say, why, this calcium was spread in June other years. This year was the end of
When they
July.
call you up and say, I have a complaint,
Yes,
guess what? It's a
Yeah.
complaint.
I've
I
worked, yeah, I've worked in
agree.
retail all my life,
And
still considered a complaint.
I've done it for 30 years and it's the minute you change that from a negative thing into more of a request for service, it turns everybody into a better mood than say, well, you're just calling to complain. No, you're not calling to complain. You're requesting for service. And
We would
then
have
we can
to
direct
change-
that.
We would have to change the bylaw.
Yeah.
It says
you'd have to
complaint
change the
bylaw.
policy.
Change the policy, right?
Well, I think then you're gonna get misunderstanding of what it is. You
Well, I
know
think
that,
there-
I know
Can't
it.
win either way.
I
here.
know, I know.
I think there should be something in there to, for people to realize that, that there is a policy, they can phone that or something, but
No, you're
I
right.
still think that, it was just a matter of a lot of people not knowing and a few lines in the newsletter would
Yeah.
say, it's not, I don't agree with her, what she said. I don't agree with a lot of what she said, but
Yeah,
I don't, we're not putting in that we failed.
Yes,
We're just explaining that beyond our control.
Yeah.
We could not do this.
Yeah.
Like, it's not a failure.
no,
We didn't ask the grader to break down, or we didn't, it wasn't maintenance, a lack of maintenance. And we couldn't get in the line for calcium because that's the rule, that it's scheduling.
yeah.
yeah.
And the brushing, well, the machine was wore out.
Mhm,
Wasn't that it was our failure. So I don't agree with her.
mhm.
So do we mention that? Because, I mean, the other thing though, in the, when you're looking at that, do we just go back to complaint or do we just say due to, weather interruptions, this happened this year, Whether it was timing or equipment breakdowns,
Something saying that we had a lot of breakdowns. If you have problems with some of the service, this is the procedure, the complaint bylaw or the policy.
Yeah.
To do it, to phone the office and they will explain why.
And I know in the winter time, I can't tell you how many times,
Oh, yeah.
and with our new,
Yeah, with
GIS.
ABL, we can show exactly when. And
Yes.
right now, a lot of people are complaining about a lot of things that have been completed. We notice an increase in calls, complaints and issues, I'd say at least 30% every day.
They're trackable now.
yes. Well,
Well,
So if we look under municipal bylaw in the newsletter, oh, you guys don't have a copy of the newsletter?
Yeah, I sent it.
I didn't,
Yeah, I didn't
I didn't
print
print it off.
We do have, for municipal bylaw inquiries and complaints, please contact the township office
Yeah,
on the bottom.
yeah.
So we might be able to work
Yeah,
something on those lines. The council chooses.
because it has to be just more than the bylaws. It has to be the level of.
Yeah, well, we
service.
could move it up,
Yeah.
tie it all together.
Yeah, that's
somehow.
why I was looking at page 2, I have it written here. But that's the one.
I really like the newsletter, but I just think there should be some explanation.
And it does look
Mhm.
good,
Yeah.
and we'll adopt it next time and
So you do have it in here, it's in this newsletter, which is great. And you know what, I'm gonna keep this by my telephone. I'm going to say, did you read the full newsletter?
Yeah.
Yeah. I will answer what I can, if I can, but if it's the office that records this, and if you don't have it recorded, we can't do a thing about it.
then you can look back though and
Yeah.
say, these are where the issues are,
That's right.
and we need to work on them.
Yeah.
So we can certainly look at that in the newsletter. Again, this is just a draft.
Yeah.
And actually, I can say it.
Say it.
I don't get out of Nipissing Township hardly ever. The other day I went all the way to, I went all the way to Alsace,
Point it out.
Yeah.
all the way to the Alsace. Look, we had 5 new fire signs.
Yeah.
There's a spelling mistake on one of them.
And it's the one
No.
we used in the
And it's the one
newsletter.
in the newsletter.
No.
It's gonna be corrected this week. However,
So, see where it's like forest fire has
Oh,
there.
yeah. Oh, I didn't even see, I didn't even catch that, because I was reading it off my phone and I didn't want to print the color out.
Well, I drove up to Matthews Maple Syrup and I had 2 people that it was taken up there and they went, I went, hey, our new signs are up. And then it was, and they didn't catch it either.
Is this on all of the fire ones?
No,
Just that one?
That's
It'll
the
be
only-
corrected by Thursday.
Are they paying for it?
Well,
Yes.
it's-
Yeah,
it's just
It was an oversight on all parts. So what happened was this was the original sign. So that was the draft of the original. And then
Okay.
when we decided to integrate it, the township signs and the fire rating signs, we had another draft. Well, they took the first one for the one sign and then the rest off the others. So
Yeah, because the front cover shows the other, and it doesn't have that. So you can check them on 654 and it's fine.
I'm assuming you'll correct this for the, when we send out the newsletter. right?
yes. 100%.
yeah.
It wasn't supposed
The
to
other
be
thing
there.
is, that's why it should stay right on that island. But
You like it out there, eh?
yeah, it's just when you come to town. But make those changes. This will come up. This was just to look at tonight. We're not passing anything. And yes,
Hey, what's going on the next page? Did you not see that fire mistake? That's HAZAED.
yeah, that's the
we're
one.
talking about.
Oh, I'm talking about the one on the front page, okay.
There's nothing on.
Oh,
the
okay.
It's right, it's right.
That one's
It's
okay.
it's the one inside Alsace and Ski.
See, that's also-
Wow, is there another one? Yeah, everybody's
And
jumping.
it just scared us
Oh
all.
my God. That's the one you're talking about,
Yeah.
okay.
And as you peruse this, because we met once a month,
It's 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Okay. Yeah, that's why we have an incredible amount of correspondence.
Yes.
And
That's why we tried to send the date early last week, so that we had lots of time to try to digest it.
there's still
I
not
cut
enough time.
that out. What was in the folder.
Oh,
We get it.
I
like,
printed it.
oh,
You printed all of that off? I refuse.
I read it
to
all.
set amount of
I
pages.
studied it all. I referred to some of the statutes that were pointed out in it.
Did you work on that for 72 hours?
Pretty close. Wish I had that time.
Yeah, so do
I didn't necessarily have the time, I just need it.
The ombudsman's book is also in this file.
Yes.
Copy that.
So really quickly, there are a number of resolutions that we may or may not want to adopt. And I swear to God, I will not read everything here to you.
Yeah.
And a couple of the things that were mentioned, and selfishly or whatever. And this is the new one because we didn't have all of them. I'm gonna go just a couple. The cost sharing formula, the North Bay Perry Sound District Health Unit, where they're saying that they feel the government should fund it totally. And it's never gonna happen. But we're going from 25 to 30%. So we're hoping that, that was something to look at. They're still negotiating, but their resolution is 25%, but they would like the government to pay it all. Number 4, the city of Vaughan. They want to raise the legal age for a licensed driver from 16 to 18, because they did have a horrific car accident in Vaughan. South River has already put out a resolution that not up here. It has to be, we want it 16. Yes,
That's reactive politics, though, right?
yes.
Because in 16, and yes, there are tragedies, but there's tragedies involving 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds and 25-year-olds.
Yeah, 50-year-olds.
It may never happen again, like a bad
Yeah.
accident.
Yep, and it was just 2 children were killed, guys speeding through a residential area, so, I don't think, certainly would support that. We did get the email from Rose,
Someone replied.
and we put it back as, again,
I'll see if it's been applied for you.
Thank you.
Actually.
Yep.
Number 6 is about roadside cutting. And I know that you had questions about the roadside cutting.
Yes.
We are scheduled later than usual because they have breakdowns. We do not have a contract. I totally missed that this year because there was just not a lot going on. I
Okay,
do have
so,
it diarized for next year to go out to RFP.
good. So that means this year we just have to police them a little more.
It's, yes, and it's coming up hopefully by the end of this week.
Okay, good,
So,
because
In
there's
the
some
past-
places it's getting
Yes, I
hanging
understand.
over. There's alders hanging over on the curves.
We understand.
and
And
Okay, good. Now I can live without the contract as long as we have
That was just
somebody
an
inspecting
oversight.
them, because last year was terrible.
This number 6 item was opposing cutting.
yes, so we've had several
What was it?
oppositions to cutting early because of the milkweed for the monarch butterflies. This was a question about the roadside cutting because our neighboring municipality had their roadside cutter come in, they cut off the map and they cut into our area and.
Yeah.
of course, cut the milkweed in our regard.
So, but we've been trying both ways, and it doesn't work necessarily for the timing. So we may have to destroy the milkweed on the side of the road. Anyone that is called the office regarding the milkweed, I am telling them that if they would like to transplant it onto their property, that we will not oppose.
I
We
think
have to
we told
watch,
them
'cause
that a few years ago.
milkweed
We
is,
try, yes,
milkweed's under the noxious weed act.
I know, but it's
Yeah.
also the habitat for monarch
Yeah,
butterflies. So
So I grow it, but at the same time, I've never seen much on the side of the road.
Now, there's the odd spot.
Yeah, there is.
There's not that many.
So, but that's how we've been approaching it, is trying to find that happy medium. If they'd like to take it, we won't oppose them taking it off of municipal property, but for health and safety reasons, we will be going back to our regular schedule for cutting.
Great. Okay, I can pass that on. Thank you.
And just moving along, where the PSA test was, number 9. For medical care system. Again, we can support that if you want to mention it, and we'll bring it up next meeting.
I thought it already, it's just a matter of doctor checking it off on the form, isn't it? And you, well, I
have to
guess you
pay
have to
for it.
pay for it.
That's
but-
what they don't want.
They
Like
don't want
women
you to
have
have-
certain tests that we don't have to pay for.
Yeah,
I think that was the whole idea
Yeah.
behind it. Yeah,
well, they'd have to be at an age limit.
yeah.
Yeah, so that one, and again, we do not want the driver's license at
No,
18.
It's not feasible up here.
No.
because
It
we need-
isn't.
A lot of families, they drive them to school once they get a license, saves the parents
yeah, yeah.
A lot.
driving. It's a little different than where they're all bused.
Township of Archipelago, unencapsulated polystyrene foam. And I see this in docks on the lakes around here, and it does, it wears down, breaks down,
The muskrats love it. And they spread it everywhere.
so if you want to support encapsulating it, starving a muskrat, please make a note, and we'll put that in the next one.
Are you seeing a problem on Lake Nipissing?
I don't see a problem because most of ours are the old cedar docks
Yeah.
made out of wood and rock. But in the archipelago where they're newer builds, and,
Well, the water fluctuation.
yeah, so they have floaters and,
On,
you know,
you see it quite a bit on the smaller lakes back Restwell and Commandant, because I've been doing a lot of docks and replacing a lot of these foam docks. And along the shoreline, you can always tell where there's a foam dock, because along the shoreline, there's always beads of, and that's where, and when you pull these old docks out of the water, they've got the muskrat holes all the way through them, and they get lower in the water every year.
So then we should be supporting.
support that then.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So just for clarity, a resolution to oppose the driving age change,
Yeah.
the PSA test?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
And unencapsulated polystyrene.
thank you. Those will be on the next agenda.
Number 12, is it official now? It's been approved by the Solicitor General.
Yes.
It's
Yeah, that,
it's approved right now then.
I thought it already went out.
Yeah, I just, I
It came
didn't,
out in a marquee. So,
yeah, it doesn't matter, as long as you tell me that I didn't get into all that.
the fire department, I spoke to the chief and he said, we don't have that issue here, the animals in hot cars. However, but if we were to be contacted.
It's more in the malls and stuff.
Yeah.
Seamless.
And of course, we mentioned it earlier, Anthony Roder, regarding improvement of access to high-speed internet. And on number 19, and I did respond to Chris Johnson and regarding the status of the CAO position. And why we aren't doing anything tonight is because on the original RFP, it said CAO. And in our discussions, it was contemplated that it would be under a different title. So if we ratified it tonight, it would be under CAO. So we've gone back and our search team, recruitment team, whatever you want to call them, said that they would rewrite that with a different title. And so that's why at this time, we can't do anything until they rewrite the job description and rewrite the title
The organization.
and the org chart. When they do that, all for, again, half of what they originally said it was going to cost,
Right.
then we can backdate it to that last closed meeting.
oh, okay.
So we're still good within the next 6
6
months.
months, okay.
You want to ask for some money back from the other company?
We may, we'll,
We're gonna put you on that phone.
I'll talk to her.
what we will do is in the next meeting, which is September 7th, we're going to have a closed session, hopefully before the meeting, and it will be 1 hour. And I don't know now if we have any, John Paul has anything on for that meeting? Committee of Adjustment? Okay, so
Well,
Probably.
regardless, we'll have to move it. Because we won't be able to schedule it.
So we're looking at starting the next meeting at 5:30. 5:30 or 5, I will ask her, and then we'll talk to you about it.
Okay, so,
It'll be at 5:30 at the latest.
okay,
It might be 5 o'clock.
okay, but we're gonna get,
We'll get a memo on it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yep, you will. I just wanted to give you a heads up.
All right.
And tell you that's why we have nothing else to say at this time because we can't advertise it until we get a different job description. So those and
I'll need as much notice as you can so I can get off work because my shift doesn't end at 5:30. So I'll need as much notice to,
note from the mayor.
yeah.
They just laugh
Yeah,
out there. Yeah, no, don't even worry. Okay,
Got anybody taller?
Same, I'd like to know too. but that's
Yes,
my
yes.
Busy time.
Yeah.
yes,
Because
the second we know. And other than that, I think we will look at those other three for sure and get them on for bylaws for the next meeting.
I would like to respond to Chris Johnston about, he had some questions about our agenda package. We can amend that and put more information certainly on the website. There was also a question about the minutes and not having enough information in the minutes. However, in the municipal act, it says without note or comment, so it's just the decisions of council. So we are following the municipal act for the minutes. That's why we do it that way.
And the only thing on that, and I'll mention it now, I guess it relates to this correspondence. We are on TV, and when we were on with the clerk from Calendar and Peggy, they pointed out a few shortcomings that we need to rectify and to avoid issues in the future. And so what they're suggesting is when things slow down, and so I'm saying in the fall, probably during low season, something like that. For our committees, anybody that wants to be on a committee, for council, and perhaps even anybody that's interested in running in the future, that we contact our integrity commissioner. And basically, he goes over clarification of rules, procedural bylaws, municipal act requirements. And they just point out it would cost less, much less than an integrity commissioner investigation or an ombudsman report. So again, you're proactive. It goes back to what they discussed about the Ham story. How we did things 30 years ago may not be the way we should be doing it now. So I'm putting that out there, and we'll probably just contact the integrity commissioner, and we pay him. We only when we call him.
Yeah, we have him on a retainer.
Of the team. So ask him if he would be available sometime. We try to do that with rec committee, cemetery committee, all the committees, and maybe more clarity. Because already I've had a number of things clarified for me. So I'd like to share that with everyone. And other than that, is there anything else in correspondence we need to look at?
No, but you're not gonna bring a ruler in here to slap our hands, are you?
That's not. I've been told. So let us move on to number 19, which is accounts. Oh, we have to accept the correspondence first. We've noted those things that we will add. So to accept the correspondence, Councillor Scott and Councillor Kirk. It's number R 2021-183, moved by Councillor Scott, seconded by Councillor Kirky, that we accept the correspondence as presented. All in favor? The accounts are huge. We have 3 of Evans bills for our roads. We have insurance
And policing.
So who did the correspondence? This side?
You know what
Guys,
size?
come on. So Councillor Moore, Councillor Marchand,
That's why I said that one is really Tuesday. We can see it next carefully enough.
Oh, I slipped up tonight.
Take a deep breath. Number R
Money's been spent.
21-184, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Marchant. The statement of accounts dated July 10th, 16th, 23rd, and 24th, and August 3rd, 7th, 11th, and 12th, 2021, totaling $443,408.18 be approved. All in favor? I see your hand up.
No,
He's,
I'm not interested.
Oh, good one. I missed that. Well done. I thought you were stretching your legs.
I thought he was passing gas.
Well, we're both wrong.
Well, can I just mention that the budget update that you have is after all of these expenses came out? So our budget is still in good shape. Even after all this.
I assumed it was.
Good. Okay. This is a confirming bylaw. So we would like to confirm tonight. Move this, mover and seconder. I'm staying the sides now. We're in March. It's number R 2021-185, moved by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Marchant, that we pass bylaw number 2021-40, being the bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held August 17th, 2021. And the first, second, and third time it passed the 17th day of August, 2021. All in favor? Carried.
That sounds like a vacuum.
Kind of like those little smoke eaters.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, gentlemen, the adjourning bylaw. Councillor
No.
Herky.
Oh, almost.
No.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Scott. What did we have? Number R 2021-186, moved by Councillor Kirky, seconded by Councillor Scott, that the meeting be adjourned at
8:30.
8 p.m. Next regular meeting to be held September 7th, 2021. All in favor? And as soon as we get a time, we will get it to you. And the reason why I suggest we have it before council starts at 6:30 and run over.
Yeah.
Because the potential for that is.
I don't know if I'm allowed to bring up, or will the trailer bylaw be on the agenda sometime?
It will be, but not yet.
We have a report from the planner with some options. That was really sweet. And we will circulate that on the next agenda for discussion. The next agenda is quite packed as well, but it will be there for discussion and see where council would like to go. It just gives options for the questions that were asked and what council. Didn't have that prepared. I just didn't think you wanted any more readings.
Good to know.
No,
People-
it is. They're gonna ask. Not they're going to ask.
It's
And I
it's coming.
appreciate everybody out there, all of you counselors fielding these questions, attempting to keep our constituents happy as much as possible. So thank you. Thank you all for being here, and see you September 7th, unless we see you in Commanda or at the Heritage this weekend. So